Well, hello, everyone. My name is John Paul. I'm the Senior Manager of Public Affairs and Traffic Safety for AAA Northeast. I'm also known as AAA's car doctor. I answer a lot of people's car questions and driver safety questions and things like that. But tonight I was asked to come and talk about safe driving as it relates to winter. If you've lived in New England for any period of time, you're probably pretty experienced with winter. But I like to think that winter is something that you don't need to be afraid of. You just need to kind of respect the weather that you're going to see. And there are times that maybe the smartest thing you can do is just stay home and not do anything. I think one of the things that COVID has taught us is that we don't necessarily have to go out in the worst weather that we're going to see. Just before we got started here today, we were chatting and I talked about how I've been at AAA for 37 years, and probably for 34 of those years, you were expected to come to work no matter what the weather was. And I live about 50 miles, or at the time lived about 50 miles from the office. So I would leave my house at 6 or 6:15 in the morning to try to get through the weather to get to work. And since then, we've kind of come around a little bit and said, there's enough technology now where you don't need to come into work every day. And I think that's one of the things COVID has taught us, that there are certainly people that can do their job from home. And even though they might go into the office, maybe in a bad weather day, it's just as easy to stay home as it is to drive in, and it's a lot safer if you do that. But I want to go over some kind of winter driving tips and some things to think about when it comes to winter driving. And at the very end, I will leave an email address where if people have questions after they maybe watched this presentation, feel free to email me. I usually try to get back to everybody within 24 hours or so, so certainly feel free to do that. And the questions can be about winter driving. It can be about a particular vehicle issue. It can be about a particular vehicle in the winter. Maybe what's a better choice of vehicle, one over the other, tire choices, all kinds of different things. You can feel free to ask me any of those kind of questions. You can ask me some basic AAA questions. Like I said, I've been at AAA for, it will be this April, I'll be going into my 38th year at AAA. So I know a lot of what we have, but every time I turn around, there's a new product or service being offered. And usually sometimes I'll have to get an answer on that. So, but I'll always try to get back to people with an answer. So certainly email me. And again, my email and all my contact information will be at the end of the presentation. I want to show a little PowerPoint presentation here. And it's called How to Go in Ice and Snow. And let's see here, we'll get this started. Oops. And again, How to Go in Ice and Snow is a presentation, sort of a little primer on winter driving. So winter is supposed to be like this, right? Pretty snow-covered trees, quiet. But unfortunately, that isn't the way it always turns out. Sometimes it looks more like this. And if you saw some of the news about people driving up from Virginia or down through Virginia last week or a week or two ago, where there was terrible ice storms and people were trapped in their cars for, in some cases, 18 to 24 hours, having a little bit of preparing ahead of time is one of the best things you can do. But for most of us, the winter isn't that pretty winter scene that something that looks like it should be a postcard. Most of it's slippery roads and shoveling snow. So we'll go over some things we can do, how to improve our driving skills, some maintenance, some things to keep in your car, and also how to get out of a bad weather jam. If you get into some kind of trouble, maybe how to get back out of it. Also, if you follow the AAA Facebook page, AAA Northeast Facebook page, I want to say it's going to be sometime in the first week of February. We are going to be doing a live webinar about just driving in bad weather and some other things. So you might want to keep an eye on the AAA Northeast Facebook page for different programs we have. We talk with all kinds of people, from traffic safety people to state legislators to automotive technology folks, all different kinds of stuff. So keep an eye on that. When we do these programs in person, we usually ask people to finish this sentence. So I live in New England, and I always say winter in New England is, and is beautiful. It's cold. It's terrible. People have all kinds of different answers. The scariest winter driving experience I ever had is, well, I will tell you two. One was, and we were at work. The weather got pretty bad. Around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, our bosses said, you know what, why don't we, the phones aren't ringing, people aren't doing anything, why don't you head home? And it was truly, it wasn't a huge amount of snow on the road, but it was this sort of snow slush mix that got to be about 6 inches deep. It froze to your windshield, it froze to your windshield wipers. It was almost impossible to see. I was probably driving at 20 or 25 miles an hour, which is about as fast as I dared go. At the time, I was road testing a very good 4-wheel drive vehicle. And even that was having a little bit of trouble in the weather because the weather was so bad. What I was afraid of was the other people on the road, the people that thought 20 or 25 miles an hour up the highway was just too slow, and they would go passing me, and I was in the right-hand lane, and they would go passing me, and next thing you know, they'd be sliding out of control across the highway and either ending up in front of me or out in a ditch somewhere. That is what made the experience bad. It wasn't so much the conditions themselves, because I was able to see the lane most of the time, I guess, stay in the lane and continue on. And when my windshield wipers completely froze over, the windshield froze over, I'd stop somewhere, knock all the ice off the windshield wipers and keep going. Again, it was this one of the scariest winter driving experiences because of the other people on the road. The other scary driving experience I had, and that day it took me about 3 hours to get home, where normally it would take me an hour and 20 minutes. The other scariest experience I ever had was myself and a coworker were going to a lunch, and it was a police department thing. It was, they were appointing a new head of the Police Chiefs Association. And it was about an hour and 20-minute drive from our office. We drove there, uneventful, in a company vehicle that we had, a minivan. About 1:30 in the afternoon, it was starting to snow. It was starting to snow pretty good. And during the snowstorm, they said, you know what, why don't we cut our meeting short? We only have another half an hour to go, but why don't we cut our meeting short and get all the police department people back to where they need to go and get any of the other guests, you know, back home or wherever they're headed. My coworker, the lunch meal was like pasta with shrimp on it. And my coworker has a seafood allergy. And she said to the waitress or who came over, you know, I have a seafood allergy. Can I get just the pasta without the shrimp on it? And they brought her pasta without shrimp on it. Her concern was that they just really just took the shrimp off the pasta, and she was worried that she was going to be allergic to it. And we got in our car, and that hour and 20-minute drive, we turned into about a 5-hour drive. And why it was really scary, not so much that we were stuck in traffic and we had plenty of gas and all that sort of thing. What made it really scary was I was concerned the whole way that she was going to have some kind of anaphylactic shock of something to do with the seafood. Fortunately, nothing happened. And in the 12 years I've worked with her now, she seems to have outgrown that allergy and she can eat seafood now. But that was one of the scary things. Again, not the scary drive. It was what's going to happen if my coworker goes into some sort of food allergy that could affect her breathing. So two of the scariest experiences I ever had. When you think about getting a car ready for winter, you really need to think about the right kind of tires on your car. Most of us have all-season tires on our cars. Our two family cars have all-season tires. One of our vehicles is all-wheel drive, one's front-wheel drive. They work pretty good, but this little dirty secret of all-season tires, we think about all-season tires living in the Northeast. So if you live in New York or New Jersey or Boston or Providence or Connecticut, the all-season tires that you buy are exactly the same all-season tires that you buy if you lived in Orlando, Florida, or Phoenix, Arizona. So they're sort of by definition a compromise. They're okay in the winter, they're okay in the summer, they're okay in the spring and fall, but they don't do anything really, really well. And that's where true dedicated winter tires do that much better. We'll get to those in just a minute. Check your tire tread and tire pressure. Tire pressure is very important. Properly inflated tires perform better in the winter weather. They get better gas mileage. They handle better. In winter weather, when the temperature changes 10 degrees, you lose about a pound of air. So if the temperature, it's a weirdly warm day, a 50-degree day, and we've had some, I think in near where I live last weekend, it may have been 0. So it can get really cold, but you go from 50 degrees to 0 degrees, you've lost about 5 pounds of air pressure. If your tires are already a little underinflated, it's certainly enough to turn a low tire light on, certainly enough to affect the handling. The car's not going to perform as well in the snow and the ice as it would if the tire was properly inflated. Proper tread is important too. We always used to say, take a penny, stick it in the tread, and if the tread doesn't come up to at least the top of Lincoln's head, it's time for new tires. We've actually changed that up a little bit. Now what we say is take a quarter, put it in the tire tread. If it doesn't come up to the top of Washington's head, it's time for new tires. The difference in tread is about twice as much. The penny distance is 2 30-seconds of tread. The quarter distance is 4 30-seconds of tread. 2 30-seconds of tire is considered worn out in every state in the Northeast. 4 30-seconds though can make a big difference in how well the car performs, and even that is getting kind of close. And we have a chart coming up. We'll demonstrate that. So here's a chart on dry, wet, and snowy pavement, and the different types of tires. So an all-season tire, which most cars have, if you tried to stop from 60 miles an hour, it would take 134 feet to stop. On wet pavement, so just rainy day, about another 9 feet, 143 feet. On a snowy pavement, we've more than doubled that stopping distance. So, and that's with winter tires. All-season tires, so the kind that you and I probably have on our cars, 668 feet to stop on snowy pavement with all-season tires. So if you live someplace where you get a lot of snow, one of my coworkers lives outside of Utica, it always seems to snow there. True winter tires are the best idea. And even at that, you're just about doubling the stopping distance, but you're so much better than just all-season tires are, because they're grippier, they work better. And winter tires also perform better in just plain old cold weather, where the rubber doesn't get as hard and sticky. So if you have to be out before the snow plows, if you have a job, a doctor emailed me the other day and said, hey, I have to be in the emergency room. I don't know when it's going to be. What do you suggest doing? And I said, change your battery every 3 years and make sure you have winter tires on your car, and you'll probably be in pretty good shape. You'll be able to get wherever you need to go. Make sure all your lights work. That's headlights, taillights, brake lights. Make sure they all work. Clean or replace any headlights that look old. The average life of a headlight is about 3 to 4 years. It usually burns out around 5 or 6 years, but the average good useful life is around 3 years. Brakes, it takes longer to stop. On snow and ice, make sure your brakes are working properly. These are things you should have inspected before the cold weather. Is it too late right now? It's never too late, but these are things we like to get taken care of in October, maybe. We like to call October Car Care Month. So you a good time to bring your car in, have a good repair shop, look your vehicle over, make sure it's in good shape. If you don't have a good repair shop, go to AAA.com/repair, and you can find a AAA approved repair shop. So a little bit more prep. I just had somebody call me today. They were wondering about their heating system in the car. Is it time to replace things like radiator hoses and heater hoses? Could be. So check to make sure the heater's working, not just for your own comfort, but also if your heater's not working properly, you're not going to defrost the windshield the way you should. Exhaust leaks, exhaust system mufflers last 10 years or longer these days, but the average age of the car on the road right now, average vehicle age right now is 12.1 years. So, if you own a 12, 13, 14-year-old car, it's entirely possible the muffler system's starting to go bad. Windshield wipers, if your windshield wipers chatter or otherwise just don't clean the windshield, spend $30 and replace them. It's money well spent. Maybe even consider winter wiper blades. We'll show you what they look like in a minute. And the window washer, the windshield washer, make sure you use good washer fluid that protects against freezing to at least minus 20 degrees. And I always like to carry an extra container of windshield washer with me because sometimes you're in one of those situations where it seems like every few minutes you're washing the windshield because there's mud and salt and spray on the windshield. So winter wiper blades, traditional blade, kind of the picture up here, you can see sort of the fingers of the blade. A winter wiper all season blade could have like a shell over it. It could be a one-piece part, but they tend to be more all weather, and they tend to work better in snowy weather, places like that. You can get them for just about every kind of windshield. So if your wiper blades are starting to chatter and squeak and just not clean the windshield anymore, and you're getting new wiper blades for your car, ask about more of an all-weather wiper blade that will work better in snowy weather. And a lot of auto parts stores today, if you go into O'Reilly's or AutoZone or any of those kind of places, a lot of times if they have the staff to be able to do it, they'll come over and put your windshield wiper blades on for you as part of selling to you. Clean all the snow off your car. There's a lot of states now that are requiring you to clean all the snow off your car. Where I live in Massachusetts, there's no specific requirement, but you're responsible for anything that falls off of your car. So if you were driving with a mattress on the roof of your car and it fell off, you would be responsible if it did some damage. If you were driving like this person, which I can't even imagine, but if you were driving like this person with a ton of snow on the roof of your car and it all slid off and it hit the car behind you and caused a problem, you would be responsible for it. Some states have very specific laws that say the car's got to be completely clean of snow and ice. Connecticut is that way. Pennsylvania is that way. And I know parts of New Hampshire, and I only know those places because those are places I've driven, and I know that's the law in those states. Also, what happens in this situation is once the car starts to warm up, you're going to kind of heat up the roof of the car. If you accelerate, all that snow is going to slide to the back and end up falling off the back of the car. If you step on the brakes, all of that snow is going to slide to the front. It's going to cover the windshield. You're not going to be able to see. And the first thing most people do is they turn the windshield wipers on. Well, windshield wipers were never designed to clean hundreds of pounds of snow off a windshield. And what would probably happen is you'd break the windshield wipers. There's a part called the wiper transmission, and it would actually probably fail. Or it could be the wiper motor itself fails, and you could spend anywhere. Some of today's cars, the wiper motors are $600, $700, $800, and all because you didn't clean all the snow off your car. So, what's the easiest way to clean the snow off your car? I happen to like one of these foam brush things. This happens to be the same one I have. It's called the Snow Brum, BRUM, but it's a broom, I guess. But basically all it is, it's a handle with a piece of styrofoam on the end of it. It makes really quick work out of cleaning all the snow off your car. I drive a small SUV. It's easy to clean the snow off the top of it. You just put it up there, bang it down the middle of the roof, slide it off, drag all the snow off the car, nice and easy. It takes literally minutes to clean the snow off a car versus trying to do it with just a little snow brush. A long handle snow brush will work okay. I kind of like this one in the picture that turns sideways, so you can kind of use it as a push broom to clean the snow. But I like the snow broom thing, the styrofoam thing. I think it just works really well. If I know it's going to snow, I take it with me. If I know it's not going to snow, and it did, I just leave it on my back porch, clean the snow off my car before I go to work in the morning, clean the snow off my wife's car in case she's going out, and makes it nice and easy. And again, takes just minutes. And what's nice about it is there's no chance you're going to scratch or damage the car because it is just a piece of styrofoam and you're not going to hurt anything. Also, you got to think about yourself. Dress appropriately when you go out. I think mittens are way better to keep your hands warm when you're shoveling, not so good for when you're driving. Gloves work better for that. I said something about no fuzzy steering wheel covers. A lot of people put sort of these big fuzzy floppy steering wheel covers on so their steering wheel doesn't feel cold if they don't have a heated steering wheel in their car. The problem is they can slide off, so I don't think it's a good idea. Dress appropriately. So in other words, be prepared for winter, but maybe when you're in your car and it's 75 degrees, you don't need to be dressed in a heavy winter coat and hat and hood and all kinds of stuff. If you can't read what it says under the picture, it says, poor kid can't move, they're paraplegic. I saw somebody who was, this is a long time ago. It was when there was toll booths. And I was at a toll booth waiting to go through the toll. And there was a guy in a car next to me. And he was probably dressed like this kid in the picture. He had a scarf on, he had a hat on, he had a hood on, very heavy winter coat. And it was about 5 o'clock in the evening. And I'm sure he had his heat turned up as hot as it would go in his car. And I look over at him and I can see he's actually nodding off. He's actually falling asleep. And, he'd fall asleep for a second, his head would come back up. He'd fall asleep for a second, his head would come back up. I noticed his head fell down for more than a second. I beeped the horn, he kind of woke up again. And then I tried to signal to him, he sort of ignored me. And what ended up happening, he ended up falling asleep for more than a second or two. He actually rolled into the car in front of him. Didn't do any damage, it was just a tap, but certainly enough to wake him up again. But again, don't overdress. If you're going to be in your car, you want to be comfortable enough to make evasive maneuvers, but warm enough to be comfortable. It's always a good idea too to carry extra warm clothes with you just in case something does happen. If you're somebody who puts winter mats in your car, so the heavy rubber mats that hold all the water and salt and dirt and stuff, make sure they're properly secured. You don't want them sliding around. And the worst thing you can do is put those mats on top of your other mats, because then they get too thick and they can get stuck under the gas pedal. So if you put winter mats in, make sure you take the regular mats out. And same thing in the summertime. Take the winter mats out, put the regular mats in, swap them back and forth. Some of the things you should keep in your car at all times, a cell phone charger and cell phone. Most people carry their phones with them more than they carry anything else with them, but make sure you bring a charger with you too. Flares or reflective triangles, traction mats, sand, something to give you traction if you need it, a scraper, a snow brush, flashlight. People say to me, why do I need a flashlight if I have a cell phone with a light in it? Because sometimes using your light for whatever reason, you'll end up killing the battery in your phone, and your phone's more important as a phone than it is a flashlight. So a flashlight with fresh batteries in it, something to keep you warm, a blanket, or usually I tell people go to a camping supply store, and it could be a regular sporting goods store. It can be Walmart or Target or someplace. Go to the camping section, the outdoor section. They have these sort of aluminum foil blankets that are about the size of they come in a package about the size of a deck of cards. It's enough to wrap yourself up if you're cold, and it'll help keep you warm. Also handy if you needed to change a flat tire or something, you can kind of spread it down on the ground so you have something to kneel down on. Some sort of small shovel of some sort so you can shovel snow. Whether it's a camping shovel, I have a shovel, I think it's made by a gardening company. It's sort of a scoop that folds in half. You can move a lot of snow with it, and it folds up, and it doesn't take up a lot of room. Jumper cables or some sort of jump pack in case you get a dead battery, windshield washer solution, and a first aid kit. I like to keep a first aid kit in every car. I also keep a portable air compressor in both. We actually have 3 cars in our family. All 3 cars have a portable air compressor. Just in case I have a low tire, but not a flat tire, I can at least go pump it up without having to change it. And then I get to a tire store and have somebody look at it and find out what's wrong with it, rather than have to change it, put it back on, or risk driving with a low tire, I can just pump it up and it makes it a lot easier. And they either hook up directly to the cigarette lighter or directly to the battery. Nice and easy to use. There are also some portable ones, some cordless ones. I used one just the other day. It runs on it's made by a company called Worx, WRX. They make a lot of kind of outdoor equipment, lawn equipment, things like that. And it is my wife ran over a piece of metal in the road, and by the time she got into the driveway, the tire was almost flat. I wanted to pump it up so I could be able to service it, and having the little air compressor work pretty well. So how do you reduce your risk? Slow down. Biggest thing you do everything slower in the winter weather. Reduce your speed by 30% or more. Sometimes I like to say 50% or more. It's out on the turnpike near where I live, the speed limit is 65 miles an hour. When the weather gets bad, they usually drop the speed limit to 40 or 45. There are times that you want to even drive slower than that. Like I said, my bad experience recently driving in bad weather, I was going 25 miles an hour, maybe not even that fast in places, because you literally couldn't see. So driving any faster than that, you couldn't see where you're going. Slow down before you enter any curves. That's going to keep you out of trouble. Curves can be slippery, obviously. Maintain a lot of distance between you and the car in front of you. We like to measure distance in seconds. A lot of people who maybe took driver's ed heard keep one car length for every 10 miles an hour. First off, it's hard to do. What's a car length? Is it a Mini Cooper? Is it a Chevy Suburban? And it's actually not even enough distance. So what we'd rather say is, when the vehicle in front of you goes by a fixed object, on a good day, you should leave about 3 seconds of following distance. If that vehicle happens to be a motorcycle, you should leave closer to 4 seconds. And in bad weather, you should leave closer to 10 seconds of following distance. That way it gives you time to react to things if things get kind of dicey up in front of you. Also, get your eyes up and look way down the road as far as you can see, because you're going to anticipate weather, spinouts, other things that are happening, and you're going to be able to react to it rather than have to react to the car right in front of you. You can react to what's going on way ahead of you. So look 20 to 30 seconds ahead, scan the roadway way up, but keep that really good, solid 10-second following distance between you and the cars in front of you. Stay in the lane that's clear. Sometimes what happens, I noticed on my way to work, the right lane would have a fair amount of traffic in it. The middle lane would have a fair amount of traffic in it. The left lane, maybe because it hadn't been plowed yet, wouldn't have much traffic in it. And you always get somebody who decides you're going too slow. They're going to drive in the left lane. I have a Ford Explorer. I can go anywhere. They drive in the left lane, and next thing you know, you see them in a ditch somewhere because they're driving too fast for the road conditions. And four-wheel drive and all-wheel drive, really all it does is get you stuck further in the snow than front-wheel drive does. So be cautious of black ice as well. Black ice is something that happens when we get a little bit of warmer weather, and we'll get a little condensation, and then all of a sudden it turns cold overnight. This little microscopic layer of ice, sometimes called flash ice, and it's as slippery as regular ice. And of course, no cruise control on snowy or wet roads. And be aware that bridges, overpasses, and underpasses always freeze first because they don't have the heat from the earth to keep them warm to melt the snow. When it comes to having to slow down, easy on the brakes. Again, slow, easy, easy, easy. The first time you jam on the brakes, you're going to maybe get the anti-lock brakes to kick in. You don't even want that to happen. Easy, easy, easy on the brakes. Again, slow down before entering curves. Maintain that 8 to 10 seconds of following distance. Be cautious of that black ice. So now what? I'm stuck. My brakes didn't work. What do I do? How do I use my brakes? Well, almost every car on the road today has anti-lock brakes. You should never pump anti-lock brakes. You should just smooth, steady pressure on the pedal. You may hear the anti-lock brake system kick in. It'll chatter, it'll make noise. It may even sound scary, but that's okay. That's what it's designed to do. And anti-lock brakes also allow you to steer at the same time. So if you think about anti-lock brakes, you can steer, you can brake, and maybe you can avoid from getting stuck in the snow like that. So what happens if you do that? First off, kind of dig out if you can. Apply the gas slowly, rock yourself back and forth. So not wildly. So put the car in drive, accelerate just a little bit, step on the brake, put the car in reverse, accelerate backwards a little bit, nice and easy back and forth. Too often people rev the engine, rev the wheels, you hear and everybody's seen it and heard it, you hear the wheels spinning wildly, and it may get the person unstuck, but usually what happens is it overheats the transmission fluid, and you're probably taking 50,000 miles worth of life out of that transmission. So nice and easy, rock the car back and forth, drive, step on the brake, put it in reverse. Some people just shift, reverse drive without stepping on the brake in between, and you're still catching the wheels as they're turning in the opposite direction. So nice and easy, back and forth, they'll get you out. So what happens if you're still stuck? Well, you might even try doing things like take the floor mats out of the car, put them under the tire that's spinning. That might be just enough extra bite that the tires kind of stick to the floor mats stick to the snow, and that's just enough to get you moving. So some people actually carry these metal traction mats with them. I've seen these sort of wedge shape, I think it's the Rain-X company, makes these sort of long, 18-inch long, kind of wedgy shaped steps. They almost look like they can kind of jam under the tire, may give you a little bit of extra traction. But I've found usually just nice and easy, back and forth is usually just enough to do it. Again, no wildly spinning the wheels, you will burn out the transmission. So once you get moving, nice and easy. Again, if you have to go uphill, don't stop in the middle of the hill. You're going to you're going to be stuck and you're going to slide backwards. So if you see the top of the hill and say there's a light up there, it's already started to turn red, you know you're not going to make it through the light. Maybe even stop at the bottom, wait till the light changes, then easy up the hill. Don't stop, keep moving, and you'll be able to make the hill and keep going. And then going down the hill, take your foot off the accelerator, let the car just slowly go down the hill on its own. So again, foot off the brake, minimal braking is what you want to do if you're in one of these downhill, unplowed roadways. So what happens if you get in a skid? Well, everybody who ever took driver's ed probably heard steer in the direction of the skid. In fact, my boss called me on Sunday and said he was doing an interview, and he said, I need a little winter car refresher. He said, I remember steer in the direction of the skid. And I said, yeah, if you actually know what that means, that's fine. But better is if you get into a skid, take your foot off the brake and look and steer where you want the car to go. Don't worry about steer in the direction of the skid. Steer where you wanted the car to go to start off with. That's going to bring you back to where you want to be. Take your foot off the gas. Don't step on the brake. Once the car starts to gain some traction, that's when you start to accelerate. So if you're starting to take a right-hand turn and the car starts to skid straight, you want to take your foot off the gas. You want to look and steer where you wanted the car to go, because your hands tend to follow your eyes. So if you're looking straight ahead, your hands will turn the wheel so the cars are going straight ahead. So all you need to remember is don't take your foot off the gas, don't step on the brake, look and steer where you want the car to go, and you should be able to get back under control again. Front wheel drive versus all-wheel drive. Four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive is really good at getting you stuck further into the snow. It doesn't necessarily do that much better. A front-wheel drive car with snow tires on it can be better than a four-wheel drive car without snow tires on. Or winter tires. So don't get overconfident. Yes, all-wheel drive will get you moving in the snow, but when it comes time to stop, all-wheel drive doesn't stop any better. If you went out and you bought a $100,000 Mercedes S-Class 4Motion vehicle with all-wheel drive and all kinds of electronic technology, when it comes time to step on the brakes at 60 miles an hour in the snow, it's going to skid just like any other car would. So it will get you moving in the snow, but it won't allow you to stop any better in the snow. So don't get overconfident if you have all-wheel drive. Of course, buckle up. Make sure you have your head restraint adjusted properly. It should kind of Think of it as kind of a catcher's mitt for the back of your head. It shouldn't be up too high. It shouldn't be down too low. Adjust your seat where you're comfortable. And again, hands on the wheel, eyes on the road. This is the time you don't want to be distracted. This is where you put your phone away. You don't want to be distracted by anything. You want to pay attention to driving only. And then maybe, just maybe, the best thing to do is don't drive at all. Stay home. When the weather is that bad, stay home. That sometimes is the absolute best thing you can do. If you have any questions for me about anything automotive or winter driving or summer driving for that matter, you can always email me. My email is jpaul@aaanortheast.com, or a really easy way to find me is AAA.com/car doctor. And there's some of my questions there. There's some of my car reviews there. There's links to some other things that I've done on that Car Doctor page. Easiest way to get a hold of me. Now, I know our live audience tonight is kind of small, but if anyone has a question, I would be happy to answer it. And it looks like you do. Go ahead.
Yes. Okay. So, yes, way back when I started driving, the big thing was you pumped the brakes, but the new cars with the ABS brakes, you gradually leave it on there and you leave it on there.
Yeah. Okay. And even back when, before there was ABS brakes, we used to say pump the brakes because we didn't know quite enough. The best thing to do, even with those cars, was something called threshold braking, which means steady pressure on the brake pedal just until the wheel started to lock up. Then you take your foot off the brake. So steady pressure, wheel start to skid a little bit, you take your foot off the brake. Just jamming on the brake pedal, boom, 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 like that. It actually can cause the car to skid a little bit, but with the anti-lock brakes, you want to do the same thing. Steady pressure. And if you're not stopping fast enough, more pressure, and then you might hear the anti-lock brakes start to make noise, and they will make a horrendous sounding noise. They'll clunk and they'll clatter and they'll make all kinds of noise, and that's okay. That's what they're doing. They're basically pumping the brake pedal, almost like what you learned when you first learned how to drive. So, but they do it with a computer, so they do it a whole lot faster and better than we could ever do it. So steady pressure on the brakes if they start to make noise. And I always tell people, if you've never experienced what anti-lock brakes feel like, go to an empty parking lot somewhere, drive about 30 miles an hour, just jam on the brakes and feel what it feels like, because it will feel like almost the first time I ever did that was somebody, they said, I thought my car was broken. It made so much noise. Some are more subtle than others, but still easy pressure on the brake pedal. If you're just driving kind of normally or in wet weather and you step on the brakes and you hear the anti-lock brake system make noise, you're probably driving too fast.
Okay. All right. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about, you had said something about the scariest thing. Now, I used to live in North Carolina and I was coming from New York and driving back down there after Christmas one time. And it was that slushy weather you were talking about, where you're using your fluid constantly. Well, that was the time that I realized there's two different kinds of fluid. There's one for winter and there's one for the summer. Well, I just put, I changed it. I'll sit there and start the whole thing out and I'll put the new one in. And I don't let the guys do it when they want to top off for your fluids, because you don't know which one it is.
You don't know what you get.
Yep. So since I had that horrendous experience where my windshield wipers froze up and I had to stay in a hotel room for, I had to stay in the hotel room for like 2 nights. I got in the car and kept, driving, and then realized you can't do it. Like took me the longest time ever to go back down to North Carolina. I realized, okay, what's up? So here recently, I just switched mine out to the winter thing. And I think it said negative 32 degrees, right? So the other day I was out there, I always bring my battery to Advanced Auto or whatever. And people can know this, that they'll test your battery. I usually give the guy $5-10, for their time and come out in the cold. But I always do that every winter just to see if it's still strongly charged. Because if not, get a battery now. Why wait till it dies, right? But I'm doing the windshield wiper stuff. Nothing's coming out. So I had to get a dowel in order to chop it up in there and be careful.
Oh, okay. Well, was that slushy? Yeah.
Yeah. And then I took some alcohol and put it in there. Is that okay?
Yeah, the alcohol is going to do, that's what's basically windshield washer fluid is soapy water with alcohol in it. It's kind of what it
Okay,
really is. Yeah.
so as far as the fluid I had in there that was for winter, and it was freezing up, slushing up. So the alcohol I was hoping was going to make it not freeze. Now, will that do anything like dry out my tubes or
No,
gaskets or anything?
no, it shouldn't do that. And you're absolutely right. That near where I am in Massachusetts, there's a store called a chain of discount stores called Ocean State Job Lot. And Job Lot buys closeouts of things. And a few years ago, there was a windshield washer shortage. And they got cases of windshield washer. And I'm like, oh, look, they have windshield washer. It's like, $3 a gallon. And I looked at it and it said, protects to 32 degrees. So in other words, it was
Right at
colored
freeze.
colored water with soap in it. So apparently they bought it from somebody down south that had an excess of it, and fine for the summertime, no good for the wintertime. So
And there is no, like, I never got the memo that there was two different kinds as just a driver, you know what I mean? Like, and ever since then, oh my God, I
yeah,
changed.
if you were traveling to Florida, for instance, you'd notice that the windshield washer fluid actually says more like it'll say summertime fluid in it actually. So, and again, you don't have to worry, if you're in the middle of Florida, you don't really have to worry about it freezing. But if you're somebody who travels back and forth, and I find most of the windshield washer fluid we have in the Northeast is usually good to about 20 below zero. Sometimes what happens is though, certain cars will have certain areas of the windshield washer system that will freeze up even when you're using the right stuff. And the other thing you can try, which is almost exactly what you did, you can buy windshield washer concentrate. So basically what it is sort of, a quart bottle of something you add to a gallon of water to make your own windshield washer. The more concentrate you add, the more it's less likely to freeze. But you did the same thing with the alcohol.
Okay,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah.
just a hack I learned too, that to keep a spray bottle of water and alcohol in your car in case you have an icy windshield or a side window or something,
It
that
could,
will- instead of like scraping and all that
yeah.
stuff. But
Yeah,
again,
the only thing you have to watch out, the only problem, and a very minor issue with using alcohol like that, alcohol will, if you've waxed your car before wintertime, it'll take the wax right off. It won't hurt the paint, but it will take the wax right off. Yeah, so it's again, won't hurt the car. But if you said, all of a sudden spring rolls around and you're like, hey, I just waxed my car in, November. Why doesn't it look shiny anymore? Well, because of the alcohol. But again, it won't hurt the paint. All you got to do is just
okay,
wax it again.
good
That's
to
all.
know, but it's like after that very scary time driving from New York down there with the right, because I was I lived down there for 25 years. So I wasn't used to like this phenomena of all that slush coming up on.
Oh yeah, yeah.
on the windshield.
I was driving. I think it was probably on 100 miles one day, and the car I filled the windshield washer before I left the house, and on the return trip, so I was probably 120 miles, I had to stop at a gas station to buy another gallon of windshield washer. I literally went through a gallon of windshield washer in just a couple hundred miles worth of driving. So yeah, it can really happen.
I couldn't believe it the other day when I opened it up and it was as empty as it was. And like, the thing is, a lot of times these places that say they top off all your fluids, they don't necessarily.
Yeah.
So you really should check your own stuff. Cause like I was looking at my coolant one day and I'm like, most women, I mean, I don't know, I don't want to make any generalizations, but most women don't usually check this stuff. But since I take these long trips, I was checking my coolant. And I had just gotten this checklist from Toyota saying that they had checked everything. And I'm like, okay, really? Because I just went and bought coolant and put it in there and used half a gallon. So how could you have done whatever, it wasn't like that. So, okay. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was tire pressure. What should the tire pressure be? Should it be higher or lower or right at factory settings for the winter?
Whatever the factory says. So if you open up the car door that says 33 in the front, 32 in the back, that's what it should be year round. And it's people will say to me, well, isn't that going to change when the temperature changes and it gets hotter out? tire pressure changes going down, it doesn't change going up. So in other words, if it's 50 degrees out and all of a sudden it's 0 out, you're going to lose about 5 pounds of air. If you fill up your tires at 32 pounds at 0, when it becomes 50 degrees up, you're not going to get 37 pounds of air. They're going to stay at 32. It has to do with the molecules being compressed. It's sort of interesting that a tire that is underinflated, so maybe a tire that only has 25 pounds of air in it, if you're driving out on the highway and you drove 100 miles at 70 miles an hour, if you check that tire pressure, it might be 50 pounds of air by the time you checked it. If you put 35 pounds of air in that tire, drove that same 100 miles, it would probably have 36 pounds of air in it. It has to do with the molecules moving back and forth. So always, whatever the door placard says, when you open up the door and it says what it is, that's the amount of air you should put in your tires.
Okay. And you know, what's funny too, is so often, again, I'll pay a guy, like, I'll go to one of these places that has the stuff and tip them and ask them to do it for me. And then they'll tell me, oh, 37's fine. I go, no, it says 35. No, 37's good. And I'm like, no, 35. So like, unless you do it yourself, you can't get it done right.
One thing to follow, two things to follow up on that. If you go to a regular tire store, a lot of tire stores belong to something called the Tire Smart program, which means that it's be tire smart, play your part, I think is what the silliness of it is. But what they've agreed to do is anybody who comes into their tire store and they're part of that Tire Smart program, they'll check the air in your tires and look your tires over, and they'll do it all for free.
I don't mind tipping them, because for me to not get dirty and all that.
I know. But sometimes, I always like to say to people, when it comes to getting the air in your tires checked, it's sometimes easier to buy a taco in a gas station than it is to get your air in your tires checked. So sometimes going into a tire store just makes it nice and easy. The other thing too is if you're a AAA member, we will also come out and test your battery for you. So as part of that's like a road service call. So if you're not sure and you want to call AAA, we'll come out. We have a special battery testing tool, and we'll also clean the battery cables when we're out there at the same time, because we know that that's one of the major reasons cars don't start.
So since you brought that up, one of the things I did the other day, I got the battery checked and everything was good and the things were tight, but even though there was not really corrosion on there, I still brought it home, and this might be old school too, I don't know. Did the whole water and baking soda thing just to get anything off? Is that something that you do or not?
It can't hurt. Take some water and baking soda, or if you want to get really fancy, an old toothbrush, and clean the tops of the battery cables, and take the mixture of baking soda and water, just pour it right on top of the battery. It's any acid that's going to be on there, it's just going to wash it right away.
So I wanted to make sure that wasn't outdated information.
Nope.
And if other people are on here, I don't want to monopolize.
You're not.
I have a few questions, if you don't mind, because this winter driving's new to me and I want to know what I'm doing, How often do you change the antifreeze in your vehicle?
That's a great question, because when I first started repairing cars a million years ago, you do it every other year. You do it every other year.
Now they say like never.
Now there's some cars, Audi, for instance, considers some engine coolant permanent to the car. It's still required that you check it periodically. But and if it does, the way you check it now is you don't just take a antifreeze hydrometer and suck some out, look at it. Some places will actually use something that looks like a little litmus strip, like you test a swimming pool or a hot tub with. You dip it in it and you measure the acid content. And if it starts getting acidy, then it's time to replace it. But typically now we're seeing antifreeze lasting 5, 6, 7 years. And as long as the important part, the critical part, is it stays full. So if for some reason there's a little bit of a leak, that lack of fluid in the cooling system can affect it. But if it stays full, we're finding that it's lasting. In some cases, I looked up something the other day, and it might have been a Volkswagen, and it said the initial radiator fill was good for 10 years, and then they recommended changing it every 5 years after that.
Okay,
So,
because
yeah,
my car is a 2012 Toyota Camry and I was gonna get a new car, but with the chip thing, I'm like, I'm
yeah,
waiting to get
yeah,
cars, so I maintain them,
yeah.
And it's only got like 100 and like not even 10,000 miles on it.
Oh,
So I just try to keep it in really good
yeah,
shape. And
no,
it's funny because like when you're a woman and you go to these places, they act like, oh, silly little girl, don't you worry about all these things. But I'm driving like to get off Long Island and stuff. I leave at night. So I'm driving through the
right,
night, which is
yeah,
what most people don't do. But I
yeah.
don't want to find myself on the side of the road in Virginia somewhere at 2 o'clock in the morning with no help in sight. So, which I do want to, maybe separately talk to you about AAA, because I was a member always until a couple of unfortunate situations. So I want to ask you about that. All right. So the antifreeze, tire pressure, oh, the thing you said about other people, it drives me crazy when I'm on the road and having to be on the road, let's say to get from point A to
Yep.
point B in a storm. And you got all these people in the big cars who think they can just act like they're on a normal day. And it drives me insane because I'm over there in my right lane with my flashes on, letting you know I'm
Yeah,
going
yeah.
slow and all because it's snowing and there's ice on the ground. So we all should be slowing down. And yeah, they act like, you're the biggest problem in the whole entire world. It's like, everyone needs to just slow
No,
down.
everybody, the biggest problems happen, and I don't care who you talk to, whether it's a police officer or a snowplow driver, the biggest problems happen when people don't respect the road, don't respect the weather, and that's where the trouble happens, so.
Yeah. Okay. That's all I had written
Okay.
down to ask you. I'm gonna check out that Tire Smart program because I do get new tires before I need to get tires too, and I
Yeah,
also
no,
get better
no,
tires than I need to get. But I don't think I need snow tires here on Long Island, I mean, we don't get that much snow.
yeah, no, it really, again, it really depends on, it's up to you if you're somebody who has to be out before they salt and sand and
Yeah,
plow the snow. Other than that, all season tires, something I learned years and years ago from tire manufacturers was an all season tire does about 70% of the work of a winter tire in up to about 3 or 4 inches of snow. So if it's 3 or 4 inches of snow, your tires are going to do okay. If it's a foot of snow, yeah, the all season tires aren't going to be good enough.
should be on
But
the road if there's a
but if
foot of
there's a foot of
on
snow,
the
stay
road.
home.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. Oh, I just want to tell you one other thing I learned somewhere along the road, that if you keep like an old tomato can, the bigger can
Yeah,
with a couple of tea candles in there, matches, if you get stuck like they did on I-95 there just recently, it's
yeah.
supposedly that one tea candle in a can will keep you warm for up to 2 hours.
It will. It will. Well,
I have,
that's an old kind of Boy Scout.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so,
The other thing that's worth pointing out, and thank you for mentioning it. One of the biggest problems that people had on that Route 95 ice storm thing was people heading out without having a full tank of gas. So they went out with a quarter of a tank of gas out in the highway because they only thought they were going a couple of exits. And all of a sudden they're stuck and they're sitting there with the car running, and your car will burn through about a half a gallon of gas an hour. So if you only have a couple of gallons of gas in your car and you're stuck for 4 hours, all of a sudden now you've run out of gas and you're part of the problem. So I always like to tell people, keep at least a half a tank of gas in your car. And if you know it's going to be snowy, if you know it's going to
fill
be
it up.
wintry, fill it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's also not good for the condensation there
Yeah.
to freeze.
Yeah. The more the tank is empty, the more likely it's going to get condensation. The more likely it gets condensation, more likely it can freeze up, and you can have a gas line freeze up problem. So yeah.
Oh, I know the other thing I wanted to ask you about. This 2012 Camry I bought new, and ever since I bought it, I get new windshield wipers every 6 months. That's how picky I am about it. I have maybe had 3 days of seeing through my windshield. I've gotten the most expensive ones through the dealership, no matter what. I've even used the tip of wiping WD-40 on the rubber blade, which didn't seem like a good idea, but it did work for a day or two. But what do you do when you don't have a good clean, you don't get a good clean from your windshield wipers?
Well,
It's
couple things,
tough.
couple things. Like you said, start with a good set of windshield wiper blades, whether the Toyota
All the
blades
time.
are good brand name. The other thing is you want to make sure that the wipers, your car is 10 years old now. You want to make sure the wipers are absolutely perpendicular to the windshield. So over time, sometimes the wiper arms will bend a little bit and they won't make a smooth squeegee across the windshield. So you want to make sure that if you turn on your windshield wiper blades and they sort of chatter, if they across the windshield, they're not wiping straight. The other thing is sometimes too many trips to the car wash get too much wax on the windshield. So make sure the windshield is good and clean. So good windshield, get out there with, window cleaner. I happen to like Sprayway, which is just a foamy window cleaner. Get the windshield really clean and then go over it with a microfiber cloth so it's really, really smooth and clean. And that will do a lot to be able to improve windshield performance. I don't think WD-40 on wiper blades is a good idea. Wipe them down with like an alcohol wipe, and that will
Okay,
clean
I
some of
looked it up and I thought that was counterintuitive too,
Yeah.
but it actually did work for
Yeah.
like a little bit and then
Little
it
bit.
stopped
Yeah.
working.
Yeah.
Because that's not oil, it's water
Yeah.
displacer,
Yeah. Yeah. But I would, it's still a lubricant. So
Yeah.
I would rather just clean usually what happens is windshield wipers pick up road grime and dirt. And that's where sometimes like an alcohol wipe or something like that does a little bit better job of, so you wipe the blades down and you'll get black off of them when you clean them.
Right.
And when the black stops coming off, they're nice and clean again. So.
Okay, but like I said too, I understand what you're saying about over time that they need to be, this car has never had
Never had good windshield wipers. Yeah. Yeah. I drive about 50 different cars a year, and even the different cars that I drive, and they're all, essentially brand new. Some wiper blades work better than others. So yeah.
Yeah, and I try to stick with the Toyota brand name.
Yeah.
And I get the arms and the whole thing,
Yeah.
$60. It's no
Yeah.
joke,
Yeah.
and I do it twice a year. And this car, just never had good interaction.
And then sometimes what happens is, as weird as it sounds, just the angle of the windshield, just the way they designed it, some just don't work very well. So.
It's
Yeah.
funny because at one point I asked somebody like about it for the 16th time, like over the period of
Yeah.
time I've owned this car, and somebody said, yeah, that year car had a problem with the curvature of the
Yeah.
windshield.
Yeah,
I'm
it could, you
Thanks.
never know. You never know.
Yeah. Do you think using Rain-X windshield wiper in the cleaner in the summer messes it up too? Do you think that?
Years back when Rain-X first came out, I thought it was like magic. You put it on the windshield and it worked really, really well. I think they've changed their formula. I'm just guessing because I don't think it works the way it used to. I will say I do like Rain-X windshield washer fluid.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I do like I do like their washer fluid. I think it adds a little bit of that Rain-X water beading stuff to it, but it's not overdoing it. I found that regular Rain-X that you put on with a, you pour it on the windshield and wipe it off with a cloth. I find that tends to make the windshield kind of smeary sometimes. So, but I think it's the difference between 30 years ago Rain-X, and I think they must have changed the formulation. But again, I'm not a chemist, so I don't know. I just know it just doesn't seem to work the way I remember it working. And I will say I like their I bought a set of
So it
wiper.
is okay to use the Rain-X.
Oh yeah,
in the
yeah.
windshield
I
washer
bought a
fluid.
set. I bought a set of wiper blades for my car because I was planning a long trip. And while I was there, they said, "Oh, for another $1, you can have the blue or the orange windshield washer." I'm like, "Oh, I'll take the Rain-X windshield washer." And I was really impressed with it. I thought it worked really well.
Okay, so I thought maybe that could be contributing
Yeah.
to my problem.
No, I don't think so. I don't
Okay.
think so.
All right, that's it. And then I don't know who's all watching this and stuff, but if you have a minute privately, I'd like to talk to you just about rejoining.
Sure.
people
Well,
again.
we'll let Jennifer come back on and stop the recording, and then we can chat a
Okay.
bit. And again, if
Okay.
people are watching this after the fact and they want to ask me a question, jpaul@aaanortheast.com or AAA.com/car doctor, and you can find me there.
Okay.
We'll let Jennifer do her